What I want to do now, I want to welcome somebody new to the panel, Limitless. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet
Limitless,
you
your
guys.
voice sounds familiar. Where do I know you from?
I co-host a podcast with Awake Souls.
Got you, Awake Souls. So are you Ronnie or
Yeah,
Jason?
no, this is Ron or Ronnie. Yeah.
Ronnie. Did I speak to you on Bro Sanchez's channel?
No, we haven't met yet. And the first thing I wanted to say was thank you for sharing with your audience that I showed Jaron 8 years ago that the AE map model was falsified. And I appreciated that because most people will hide and not say our names due to the fact that we don't agree on everything that everybody agrees on.
I will admit you guys were one of the ones initially, along with Jake the asshole. We will give him credit, even though Jake has recently besmirched my name and smeared me so many ways. Much love, Jake. We'll give you the credit. And also Q and Fee, who happens to be in the chat, who I know is not a fan of yours, Ronnie, but I'm going to give Q and
Yeah.
Fee a slice of the pie too because I think he deserves it. But anyway, that being said, I appreciate it. You, much like me, understand that whatever we can conceive of as a physical sun is not evidenced on any of the conventional models, whether it be the traditional flat earth model that's we're all supposedly strawmanned into, or this globe model. We appear to see the world from an individualistic point of view. Okay, now we can talk about, the mechanisms behind that. I know you have your thoughts, and I certainly want you to present those here if you are so inclined. But I think what you and I can both agree on is that we basically observe this world from an individual perspective. And to claim some kind of, let's say, triangulation of the sun, or that we appear, or that we view the optics of the sky in some type of uniform way from diverse locations, really is unevidenced. Go ahead, your thoughts.
Yeah. So when we talk about models, the only thing we can really use a model for is just to describe an observation. And that's it. We can't create like a entire realm model. There's no maps that work. There's no overall models that'll actually represent reality because what we've found is that we're in basically a virtual reality, which if you could imagine a video game character is not going to know they're a video game character. We just have the consciousness or the spirit which allows us insight into these types of topics. And generally what I found is that I like to take a position and then get into the debates. Whereas the people that want to argue from an agnostic standpoint generally don't help progress forward. And then what happens is if we promote or present a model, then we usually get into like these. So you and there's other groups that hate models. They don't like it. Well, we like to use a model just to represent what we can observe. Now, you know, Austin, Flatzoid, all these characters that we're talking about, I personally confronted them. Melodome, he's the most toxic character in this investigation. See, he bought a camera, which we've been promoting for over 8 years now to every single person that we meet. Get a camera, right? Get out there and start observing things because that's what we're here to do. We're alive so that we can observe. So he got the camera, and the first thing he started doing was trying to confirm a bias that he lives on a sphere. Well, acting as if he was a flat earther that believed in a dome that doesn't believe in the Bible or the dome or that the earth is flat. So he got a camera and then he instantly started taking observations to confirm his bias that the sun is a sphere and that earth is a sphere and that we're the part of the equation that's moving. When in reality, the observations over and over again show that we're stationary and fixed and it is the sun that's moving. And his observations show that perfectly.
Well, like what you said, he's confirming his bias. When one has a presupposition based on some thought or some other fallacious line of reasoning, to confirm that bias is not a hard thing to do. And it's typically emotional, it's typically short sighted, and it may or may not be, let's say, underpinned by some type of interest or agenda, which I can only speculate on, Ronnie.
Mm-hmm. Austin of the Melodome was a character that, I reached out to. I joined his podcast. I tried to explain everything that was going on, all the things that basically he's flipping on, right? We actually had a conversation on. And
I'd imagine at this point you feel somewhat vindicated. Again, you were out there in the very early days letting these FE gatekeepers know that their simplistic FE model that disregards perspective, that disregards observation, that disregards so many things was completely debunked.
Mhm.
Dave Weiss went on the Notch Ahead of Fire YouTube channel, our friend Notch, and called your channel basically the worst channel that he's ever seen. In the end, you turned out to be completely correct. You made all of them look completely foolish. This has to be some comeuppance. Some comeuppance. How are you feeling?
To be honest with you, it's the same thing that's taken place over and over again. I'm happy that the final experiment took place and that the people that are interested in the truth are able to move past that projection. That's the most important part to me. The thing that I'm not happy about is all of the disinformation and misinformation that these, it's hard to say which agency or which group these people are actually working with, but it looks like the majority of people that are calling themselves flat earthers are just outright denying all of the evidence and information. And that's the part that really gets me down. And it's crazy how hypocritical these guys are. So Austin of the Melodome, he's the most toxic character. They've tried to push him. Mark Sargent, Jeranism, everybody on the fake flat earth community, Karen B, have tried so hard to push this guy, but his energy is just so toxic that it just won't work, right?
Ronnie, I saw the same thing. He was riding all of their coattails. They pushed him, they promoted him. He was on that Jeranism show countless times. Yet, obviously, the numbers are what they are. Very strange. Look, all sizzle, no steak, man. I don't know what the deal is. Much love, Austin, but, you know, I don't know, man. That dog didn't hunt, Ronnie. So you apparently noticed the same thing I did. And again, I can only conjecture that may have some degree in, regarding his decision to leave the flat Earth community. It may play to some degree.
He was calling Stephen Alonso a liar. Now, Stephen Alonso is misusing information. He's taking a model that was created to show the impossibility and the falsification of the AE. We call it the pressurized flying pizza dome in outer space. And we also call it the Freemason projection because they've got a lot of Freemason symbolism all over the thing. So I joined, like right in the beginning of the final experiment, onto his podcast. And you can see here when I'm ready, if you want me to play the clip, of latitude need to go back to zero in the south. They go outwards to infinity and it doesn't work. The stereographic one, it does away with that. It actually makes all of the lines of latitude and longitude perfectly. You can measure anywhere on the earth and you can put it in any organization that you want. You click on any country, you put it in Florida, and then it moves the map and it orientates it to that location. So I just want to point out here, because I know your audience probably isn't aware. So we only talk about a model that has to be centered on your latitude and longitude to be accurate. We don't believe that the 2-scale version of Earth exists, nor do we believe that it can be created. And we argue that's because we're in a virtual reality. You're in a supernatural realm, likened to something under the Matrix. So I explained to Austin and Lowry, who had to leave the call, and Mike here, or not Mike, I called him that. No, it's what's his name? Chris, the guy, Flatman X. I explained to them that the latitude and longitude lines don't work on the AE map. Here's the response. Completely interactive and limitless.
I can do that with a fucking AE map, bro. I can do the same fucking thing. And my observations line up with it.
So he's claiming to me, this was pre the final experiment when I went on, and it wasn't that long ago. He's saying that he can prove me wrong that the AE map does work. Look. No, well, the sun doesn't circle to the left. It rises south and sets south of the equator. So it's it's not circling around that map. It's going the other way, I'm trying to say,
No, look,
so the equinox, the sun rises due east and it sets due west for everyone in the world, which is a huge baller debunk. I want to point that out real quick to your audience as well, Z. And I know you've heard this argument before from many people. So the fact that you can have a sun that rises when you take a compass and you have 360 degrees around you and you go outside and you measure the sun at 90 degrees east, and then you watch as the sun sets and it's at 270 degrees west, right? Everywhere. It's not just in one spot or along one latitude or along one longitude. It's everywhere on the map. This does not work on any shape, especially not on a sphere. right? This is just basic, right? And especially not on an AE map with a sun that circles around Polaris, right? Obviously, if the sun is hooking up to the right, it can't be rising and setting in a straight path. Do you get that?
And if you would like to again just reiterate, it doesn't work on a sphere either.
No.
You see, that's the thing that these people don't understand, and this is the point I made to Jaron when I debated him on his channel. This is the point I've been making to all those in this camp, is that it doesn't work. The sun is apparent no matter which model you have. You cannot triangulate the sun on their conception of a model, which are basically conflating a map into a model, which is another topic. And you certainly cannot triangulate on a globe either. They just want to overlook the elephant in the room and just appeal to the consensus of the globe. It doesn't hold up. This point has been brought to them multiple times, so much so that it almost seems as though they're purposely ignoring it. And I have to ask the question, why? Why would they consistently ignore the apparent sun on their globe model, which is admitted to by popular science? They use an apparent sun to calculate civil time, and they refer to it as a mean sun. This is known from the Navy through their training videos. This is admitted to in anybody who really understands the astronomical system and astronomical algorithms, which basically all the celestial data is based off of. What do you think the disconnect is here?
So, in my opinion, it was deep inside the rabbit hole. David Weiss, which, if anybody doesn't know, the deep inside the rabbit hole term is actually a Freemasonic creation from the late 1800s. What he proposed was that the globe Earth lie is the most important psyop that team has. So all of these characters have been put in place to perpetuate false, and misinformation that only can be debunked, leading people to the globe Earth lie. Now, you brought up some very interesting points. Now, when we start talking about triangulating, when we start talking about how does the sky work, Austin Melodome, when I asked him, and we tried to get him to do, you can go out with your camera, people can go out with their own eyes, and you can witness clouds in front of and behind the sun and the moon. When I discovered this back in 2015, right, QNFEE actually filmed a lot of it himself. We discovered that this place here isn't working the way that it should. This is impossible. This is impossible in a 90 million mile away or 3,000 mile away. The clouds are a couple of miles away from me. Not only that, you can have a sun rising and it can be a beautiful pink and blue and golden sky. And then someone can have a bright sun high above them, and someone can have a beautiful sunset, all happening at the same time. So what we can observe is that the sun rises up from the ground, goes over our heads, and then sets back into the ground. And if we go too far north or too far south at certain times of the year, the sun circles around us reciprocally. That's it. Okay. Once we have those observations, then we can start to understand how does that fit into a physical or a thought idea of a model or a map. That's what we can do. But what Austin didn't do was actually go out and film the clouds in front of and behind the sun. So I say in front of and behind because people will say, oh, sure, the clouds go behind the luminaries because the brightness of them. Well, unfortunately, if you have a cloud that's in front of and behind at the same time, that sort of falsifies the idea that it's the brightness of the sun or the moon blasting through the clouds. So when you understand, when you figure out that there are things inside of our observations of reality that destroy our physical understanding of what reality is, you have to start to ask yourselves bigger questions.
I want you to loop back to the comment you made about the solar observations from various locations on the equinox. Okay. And I'm going to bring up a visual. This is a snapshot in time. Okay. So this is the equinox. At the same moment, we have 8 diverse locations on what we can call the Great Circle, which would be longitude. Okay. So you have a longitude there on the right side of the map, and then you have a longitude on the left side of the map. If you put those together on like what they would call the globe model, that's what they call in popular science a great circle. On the AE map, or this Gleason's map, which is basically an azimuthal equidistant map, you find that it's a straight line across. But either way, we're talking about a map which is a projection of the geography. Okay, that being said, what you find here
Mhm.
is that when you see the sun rising there over these diverse locations, these diverse latitude lines progressing from north to south along the same longitude line, all the way from, let's say, which appears to be Northern Europe, probably the Scandinavian countries, down all the way to the southern tip of Africa and below, you find that at this particular time, which is sunrise, they're all looking at 90 degrees from true north, which would be considered a 90-degree azimuthal angle. You find that at the same time, the sun would be considered at a 90-degree elevation angle, all right above, which would be considered solar noon on the equinox there, right above Australia. Okay, you can see that.
Mhm.
Simultaneously, you see on the right side the longitude line running uh, across multiple latitudes from north to south in the Pacific, and they are at the exact same moment viewing a sunset at a 270-degree azimuth off of north. This underpins your exact point that the sun cannot be triangulated, and this equinox is just the most extreme example that can be used to highlight this point. So when Austin said to you that he could do the same on an AE model, he's literally shown to be false right here. Either he didn't know it, Ronnie, or he was
Mhm.
purposely avoiding it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The image that you have up here absolutely destroys the idea of a sun circling, right? Due to the due east and due west rise and set on the equinox, that happens twice a year. The issues with this map and model, so we can put any, again, we've been discussing here, we can put any map or any model with a coordinate system on it, and we can try to plot the luminaries over it. And someone could come along like Q and debunk it and say, look at this inconsistency, or these two measurements don't work. That's because what we've found in our over a decade of research is that you can only keep things localized exactly the way that it would be in a virtual reality. So when you plot this on a sphere, it also does not work. So when you try to triangulate 9270 or that 90 sunrise on a curved surface, you find your tangents angle away from that 90 rise. You're going to have 91, 92, 93, 94. Every degree you go up the sphere, you also angle away from the position of the sun. Now, the interesting thing is in the heliocentric model, right, on the solstices are actually where the spherical model has it aligned with the ecliptic plane to maybe have a due east, due west sun only on, and now when we brought this up to Will Duffy of the Final Experiment, he just ignored it and said, you guys don't think anything's real. And he asked for an actual prediction that the sun model, the heliocentric model predicts, and that was it, right? In the equinox, if the sun is tilted, if the earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees, you can't have a due east, due west rise set. It destroys their model, right? So what you have on the screen is absolutely correct. There's been many good debunks. And the other issue with this projection is it only has one pole. So the glurfers or globe earthers, whatever you guys want to call them, they'll come and say, show me where sigma octans is and how the stars rotate around that. And they'll debunk this model of reality, right? And then what it is, if we go back to the video, you're going to see Austin from Melodome. He's about to bring it up. Now, it's crazy that it's only been like, this video wasn't exactly, so it's only been 6 months since I actually went on there. It hasn't been years. He hasn't done the information. He's literally going around now, Austin from Melodome, Austin Thompson. There's many Austins in the group. He's going around now shaming people who say exactly what he's about to say. He just called Stephen Alonso a liar. He's lying to you. Well, do you know how he knows he's lying? Because this guy right here was doing it too. Straight. Look, your map, the AE1, the sun has to be turning all the time. It never goes straight, bro. And then not only that, in the wintertime, what ends up happening,
never goes straight. What are you?
The sun actually starts to circle down to the left. Here's Austin. He's got the Walter Bislin projection that was created to falsify the map. He's got this up, the Walter Bislin. He's going to use it to defend himself. It starts to go away from you. Jaren's going to the 24-hour Antarctic spot where they're going to film the sun go completely off of your map. That's why it doesn't work. It's not you, bro. It's the projection. It's incorrect.
right? The 9270 is the debunk of all different spherical maps, spherical models. You can't have a curved Earth with the sun rising due east and setting due west, and that happens twice a year on the equinox. It's impossible.
Yeah, that's what I documented during the fucking summer.
Yeah.
So, like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about right now?
Yeah, man, it's
You
not
short-circuited him, Ronnie. You short-circuited the
When you
guy.
look at him, a bigger.
Yeah, I don't know. You think he's short circuited or is he acting?
He went to solstice, man. It was weird. He glitched.
Yeah, and the solstice is when the sun should rise to east to west.
The macro version of reality, you can't triangulate. Nothing works, man. Only your small circle of sight. That's what I've been trying to say. You got.
And another thing that everybody keeps bringing up, mocking channels like Q and Nachiketa, and you'll see that instead of just addressing us, they've got to make up, like, of course, call us names, do everything but point people to you or play your argument. So SunCalc, Stellarium, all these different modeling programs, Andrew Marsh, they're not created off of any spherical models or calculations. They superimpose, right, or begging the question or confirming the consequence. They add in different ratios that deal with the actual distances of what they believe their map and model to be, and we can triple, quadruple, we can double the measurements, and then they can still comport to that model and program. But what we do find is that SunCalc, Stellarium, and Andrew Marsh are fixed flat plane observations with sunrise and set angles. That's
exactly,
it.
Dude. They keep conflating this SunCalc data with the globe. Okay, in reality, all we're talking about is astronomical algorithms based off celestial observation, which are angle measurements of the sky. You have an azimuthal 360-degree measurement based off of true north, and you have an elevation angle from 0 to 90. This is it. It's celestial observation, solar data. There's no map or model implicated in it. You just need to know where true north is. That's it. Whichever projection, gridded longitude and latitude projection you decide to place it on really is of no consequence. Plain and simple. But they continue to argue that the SunCalc is a globe model. It has no legs, and this is all they have. It's an obfuscation at best. At worst, it's a lie.
Well said. Absolutely every single map and model projection that you try to use won't comport to reality. There's guys behind the scenes that you might not. Do you know Red's Rhetoric, Z?
I know the name. That's it.
Yeah. So, okay, there's characters that have been around in this debate platform for a very long time, since the beginning of the resurgence of the flat earth, which has been around longer than a decade, by the way, for anyone that's tuning in. There was a lot of websites dedicated to it. People denied the moon landings and continued to debunk the earth being a sphere for a very long time.
Dude, more than a decade. Ronnie, I've read books going back to the 1800s here, man. The Flat Earth Society, which was vilified by these flat earth gatekeepers for years as the PSYOP. Turns out we know who the PSYOP is now. I'm not advocating for the Flat Earth Society, but here's the deal. There's been flat earth. Ronnie, do you know the first time I ever heard about flat earth was in 1995? My advanced calculus professor was an old guy. It was his last year teaching, and he sat in front of the whole class one day and told us all the earth was flat, obviously, and we just laughed at him, and he was serious. And that was the first time I heard it. Was in 1995. His name was Mr. Lin. God rest his soul. There's no way, very unlikely that he's still gracing the world with his presence. But 1995, he told me, we all laughed at him, and it turns out he was serious. And here we are all these years later. So this idea that the flat earth is like some internet psyop initiated in 2014 completely holds no water. It's totally debunked. This is crazy. And that's the thing, man. A lot of people who are in this so-called community have attributed this movement to personalities. They attribute it to Sergeant Dubé. They attribute it to Weiss, so on and so on, Math Powerland, and down the line. These people were just simply regurgitating information that they came across or were given and presented it on YouTube. They basically promoted an unevidenced model. They branded Flat Earth. They profited from Flat Earth, and now the very model that they promoted all these years was presented as a false binary that was basically debunked by this quote-unquote mutually exclusive observation in Antarctica. The whole thing smells fishy. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, so the globe lie that David Weiss said was the most important lie to them, because without the globular sphere Earth heliocentrism, you can't really have atheism. And I don't want to get into the argument of who created it, but if it's not a spinning Big Bang cosmology, there's definitely a creator, and they can't afford that. Hey, Z, I'll tell you right now, the problem with the sphere Earth, right? We can debate whether the sun circles around. Okay, yeah, these guys filmed it. The sun circles around our heads. Listen, we can talk about the tilt of the sun, how Austin wits it. Hopefully you have him on and you can ask him why he was using the same shaming tactics that he's now using hypocritically against people that he's then now going against. He did this to me. So the problem is if you're claiming that the Earth is spherical and curving, you need to actually have that baseline adjust. So there's only two ways that we can actually, and I'm not trying to straw man this, creating a false binary. You know that. I'm against that. I'm the Limitless channel. If you want to claim that the Earth is spherical and you went to the bottom of a ball and it's just big Home Depots and you just don't understand it because you don't understand Home Depots, you actually have to have an unassisted gyroscope process 180 degrees from the North Pole to the South Pole. And if you don't, I don't care, Fight the Flat Earth, MC Tune, Dave McKeegan, all of you, Simon Dan, Professor Dave Explains, I will sit there and I will debate each and every one of you, because I can prove redundantly with a 3-mile water level test that any shoreline of water in the realm, that it measures and comports to being flat, and that the baseline, it doesn't matter whether I go east, west, north, or south, you never have a procession of that unassisted gyroscope ever.
Right. Well, again, you're asking for physical evidence, which they'll never be able to provide because there are no physical proofs of the globe. There's only, let's call it, I don't know, speculation. You know, it's speculative.
Well, so, you brought up another big one. You said when you were talking about Austin that Jason has a video that went pretty good before he got censored called River
Ronnie.
Proof.
That's my number one. Ronnie, that's my number one debunk because it's logical. My whole argument is you don't really need science to debunk the globe. It's debunked logically. The Nile River is the best example, or any long river, really, because for the audience, and I'll let you continue, the Nile River is 4,000 miles long. That's basically 1/6 of the purported circumference of their globe. 1/6. The Silver Nile basically runs from like south to like northeast, so to speak, and it's pretty straight, almost completely straight, with a few bends here and there. What we're saying is from the start of the Nile to its end, over the course of 4,000 miles, it only descends 3/4 of a mile in elevation. So for this river to exist on a globe, it would have to flow 2,000 miles, which is half of that river, uphill against gravity to the tune of hundreds of miles uphill. It's a debunk on the globe on its face. This is physical reality. This is the world that we live in, the world that could be substantiated, the world that you can actually test, that you could actually measure and repeat. They keep wanting to bring it to the optics of the sky, the illusory sky. But go ahead, make your point, please.
Absolutely, you're correct. Water cannot flow uphill. It can't. It doesn't. You can test that all you want. The Suez Canal also unassisted. There's no lift locks on it. Right? People can go and test these things. The salt flats. See, here's the thing with the final experiment, and then I'll go back to Austin. So the important thing is when they were there, the Flat Earth team, the Austin keeps saying, you know, and I'm reached out to him too. I'd like to have him on and hear his side. They were the best ones selected to do this. They didn't even try to do any vanishing point tests. They didn't do any measurements. They didn't test. So there's mountains in the distance that you can measure and you can actually verify. And you can see that there actually is no curvature there. And this is the thing. They were selected. I believe that I have enough evidence to show going back 10 years that Jaron was the one who was chosen. My evidence leads me to believe that I don't know if these characters get selected due to the fact that they're blackmailed, right? Like, so Jaron was in a Bitcoin scandal. Hundreds of thousands of dollars went missing in a Bitcoin scandal, which he's scrubbed the internet of all the evidence, but we still have it documented. And what happens is it's like they take these characters and they say, you're going to do this role. And they only select people that are intelligent too. So Jaron was selected. He debunked the supposed shadows in Antarctica, and then he was selected to go there so that he could set that false binary up. And his spin-off character is this Austin Thompson of the Melodome, who, again, this was me. We're looking at the screen share. I joined 6 months ago on his podcast to explain to him how the AE map doesn't work. 6 months later now, he's going around shaming people with this same information. Let's hear a bit more.
6 gates on the east, 6 gates on the west, that circle there. If you pull up, if you go to andrewmarsh.com, his website has it perfect.
Andrew Marsh. So again, what he's showing here, he's linking his sun observations that he now says proves that he lives on a sphere. Austin Thompson, this guy, he's linking it to the Walter Bislin model that was created to falsify the AE map. Right? He now says this proves globe. This is him just 6 months ago saying that it proves flat Earth.
It's on a flat plane.
The AE map model only has one polar point, and they talk about that always being Polaris.
So when we talk about, I've seen in the chat some people, back and forth, Z, and maybe, I don't know if you've been into this conversation about how we can measure two poles. Do you have any understanding in that?
I call it a celestial antipode. Okay, that's what I've dubbed it, the celestial antipode, because it seems to be optical in nature. But go ahead.
That's a fancy title for it that accurately does describe. So there are two antipodes. So in the sky, you can look above you and you can measure. You can get to Polaris is 90 degrees above your head on the plane. Then you can go south on the plane, and you can get Sigma Octans, which is a void region that the southern stars rotate around. You can get that at 90 degrees above your head. And below that, those are the two poles. That's it. There's no bottom of it. There's no curvature. We just need people
right.
to
There's no
understand.
globe implied, but people assume and presuppose globe based on their indoctrinated definition that was given to them. Nobody's claiming the globe. I went on a channel not long ago, and I brought up this idea of a celestial antipode, and right away they were questioning my credentials, and they were basically positing that I was, referring to a globe. It couldn't be any further from the truth. I specifically say celestial antipode because we're talking about the observations in the sky. Nothing to do with the physicality of this world.
The only way, like, you nailed it. Again, people in the chat saying measure two poles. No, I explained it. When you literally observe Sigma Octans at 90 above your head, put an X below your feet, then travel north on the plane, and when Polaris is at 90 above your head, you put another X on the ground. Those are the two poles. Now, it's just in the sky. You're not underneath anything. But let's keep going. You completely understand it, Z, and it doesn't surprise me that you're way above whose ever head that you were on. They had no idea what you were talking about. They just heard globe.
But now we're seeing that actually there is a clockwise rotation around Sigma Octans, and this would have to be in every single direction on the AE map model, right? Because everywhere is south. And then you've got the free Masonic stars that are rotating around like this. Makes absolutely no sense. I mean, you got to be crazy.
Like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about right now?
Because do you see how these stars around the outside, all right, they would just be going around the merry-go-round like this, horizontal. Nobody's ever seen a star just go around horizontal like this. That's crazy talk. Because the farther south you are, the higher this Sigma Octans is. Now, what the graphic's doing is actually pulling in the stars from the AE map model and starting to show you what the light would be having to do in order to represent these stars within your circle of sight.
Yeah, man, it's not about these.
All right, so this becomes hilarious. All right, so this red spot up at the top here would be for the person down here. That's 45 degrees south. So they're looking up 45 degrees in the sky, 45 degrees up, looking due south, 180 degrees. And they're seeing this rotation going around Sigma Octans. The Southern Cross is real tight to it. They see this rotation, and then they're showing that these stars out here would have to be coming in and doing a loop around hook back to the observer.
This is very important. This is, you know, something that they're not bringing up, Stephen Alonso, and this is why Austin's going around calling him a liar, even though this was what he was actually using to defend the model when I told him that it didn't work. So you can't see, the sun is where my pointer is. I don't know if my cursor shows up on the screen share. You can't see through the lit side of the Earth to see the stars on this side of the supposed dome. It's impossible. Okay. And nothing is warping and bending and twisting in reality. What ended up happening was a group of people set out to protect the globe lie, and they took all of the things that the globe Earth. So the globe Earth is the one that says they can see too far. They can tell you that they can see to the outer reaches of the universe, but we actually have a distance, angular resolution as to what we can see. Light just disappears at a certain distance, and it can't, it doesn't, there's no way that it bends around and optically goes behind us. This is, again, you'll hear someone like Jaron saying, of course it works, the Solarian eclipse, because you give them the 5 degrees of the bending, and then they'll bring up Stephen Hawking, and they'll try to use like warping of space and time, and if we circle around a black hole, we can go back in time. All this just crazy gibberish. Right? We're just here and we're looking for just simple, basic observations that everyone can do and that we can stand firmly on. That's the only thing that I'm after. Are you with me?
100%. I just want to add, you know, by acknowledging the Selenalian eclipse, they're acknowledging the apparent nature of the celestial bodies. You know, they just want to argue that it's a matter of quantity. I said earlier, it's like, well, our apparentness is less than your apparentness, so we win. It's a goofy way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's channels that have been doing these debunks and observations for a long time. I'd like to see them get back to it. Someone like Q in your chat, he was the one that did the model that showed that these observations are impossible on an AE map with a supposed dome. And then you'll get people that are clearly anti-Christ, anti-biblical nature, like Austin, that go around saying that they have a dome, and then they'll use a mistransliterated word like rakia, which meant great expanse, right? Or another good one, Z, I'm creating another talking point debate program where I'm going to go against all these biblical cosmology channels. We're going to have it out. They'll say that Earth is like a crystalline glass. Have you heard people saying that?
Yes.
Like Joe Hanvey and all these other characters. And do you want to know what that's actually referring to in the Bible? It's referring to a sundog, right? Just reflection off of ice crystals in the sky. The scriptures literally give you that description if you actually look at the correct transliterations. So everybody out there, they just want to take pieces and whatever fits their bias, right? Like, oh, you know, I want it to be this shape. I want it to be that shape. And then they just try to debate that. And then somebody who actually takes the time, like Q or other people like that, like Jason of Awake Souls, that inspect and actually try to model these things, you end up finding out that you can debunk all of it.
The other thing with the Selenalian eclipse is that the shadow comes from above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
comes from the top.
The
So
shadow,
what that
yep.
would be considered, I guess, what they say is Earth shadow comes from above. Wouldn't that be correct?
Yeah, so we're on a Mobius strip now with upside down Earth. Is that what it is?
So
Right.
again, it's showing the illusory nature of the sky. But they want to claim a one-to-one relationship with the heavenly bodies. They want to claim them physical as such. Okay, again, ignoring all evidence to the contrary. They just invoke the globe and basically just revert back to it when it's unsupported from the get.
Yeah, well, there's other areas too, like the fact that the shadow goes the wrong direction. It also goes multiple directions during an eclipse. The lengths and times of the actual eclipse. It's just insane when you actually start to look at how it literally doesn't comport to anything that would be found in a spherical model, as well as the angles on the rise and set. So let's just finish this off.
And this is coming from all the way across the world. So,
like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
So now they're saying that if you're down here, to see the stars that you'd be seeing up here, they're coming from actually over here when the sun is in between you and the star. Mapping it out, the sun Moon would be in between you, the other side of the dome.
The
Like,
stars
the
would have
person-
to, you know, in the globe Earth model, the heliocentrists, they say that the sun, the stars' light actually bend around galaxies. So now you're starting to see the exact same psyops that were employed for the globe Earth, the AE map model New World Order shills. Freemasons brought in the same psyops. Now they're telling you the starlight is bending around the sun, just like what the heliocentrists try to sell you.
All right, so now you can see if you're down here at 45 degrees south latitude and you're looking up to sigma octans, 45 degrees, and you're seeing the stars rotating around this within your circle of sight, you're literally pulling the stars from the other side of Earth, other side of the dome, with the sun in between you and them. In between you and them. Right? It's an absurdity.
People are constantly trying to strawman when we talk about being in a virtual reality. They try to say that, oh, well, where's the boundaries? Yeah, so we're saying, okay, we were all taught that we're in some Big Bang heliocentric model, and that everything spins around the sun and it all came from nothing in a big explosion. We're trying to say that we're in what could be likened unto a matrix or a virtual reality, and there are no boundaries.
Your idea would be that the reality is rendering itself in real time.
Mm-hmm. And what we can actually use as evidences for this, we're going to be going over a little bit of that tomorrow, is issues with time, with the distances that you travel with latitudes and longitudes when going north and south. We're going to be going over all these things that we found that actually don't comport to a fixed, you know, stationary like rock and luminary. We're saying that everything is a virtual reality. There's no boundaries. The sun, the moon, and the stars, they only correspond to your latitude and longitude. Everything else is basically being rendered to us exactly the way that you said. So you can conceptualize and understand so you have borders here, but they're borderless, like a holodeck, or I don't know. You know, every time I try to explain this stuff, people just take it and try to like straw man me with it. I'm grateful that you had me on and that you allowed me to show the stuff with Austin, because so he was the one who was defending the AE Map and Model Walter Bislin program to me 6 months ago. You've got this documented on your channel now. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's interesting to say the least, but again, par for the course, because he did a complete flip and it was abrupt. And again, to claim that it was based on this so-called mutually exclusive observation, to me is highly suspect. And that's kind of my feeling on it. All right, homie, thanks for coming on. Do me a favor, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and Jason one more time.
Yeah, so I've been kicked off of YouTube. Jason of Awake Souls on YouTube, Awake Souls channel. He allows me to podcast and go on his channel. I'm on Rumble. You can search me at the Limitless channel. All of our links are in the description box.
All right, Ronnie, thanks for being here. It's Ronnie, everybody.